The Valemount Community Garden is located on Ash Street in a field directly behind the Valemount Secondary School. It was established last year by Robson Valley Community Services in an effort to increase the amount of produce available in Valemount. We spoke with Rebecca Wiley, Food Service Coordinator with RVCS. What is the community garden, the Valemount Community Garden? Can you explain for people that don't know?
Sure, yeah. So the community garden is a space where people can rent a bed and plant their own seeds, grow their own food. And it's a place where people can come and learn about gardening. They can learn about soil and different workshops that we'll run throughout the summer. And it's also a place for people to connect with other people. So during COVID, it's obviously very difficult for people to connect with other people, and a lot of people are very lonely. So being able to come out and meet people in a safe way from bed to bed, it's obviously much further than 6 feet. So it's a great way to get to know other people in the community and share knowledge, share food, and learn from other people, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so the concept is that people come and they rent a bed? How does that work?
Yeah, so so far we've had lots of interest in the beds, and we have, most of the beds are already given out to people, but we may have a couple extras, but people can rent, they can rent a bed. The beds are quite big, as you can see, and within that bed they're allowed to plant whatever they want.
Okay. And what does it cost per year?
It costs $25 to rent a bed per year. And with that, part of it is spending a little bit of time and volunteering with us to help maintain the overall garden. So for each year, we ask that people commit 8 hours of volunteer for the overall garden. And with that, we're moving soil and weeding and that type of thing.
Okay, so it's a practical thing. People grow their own food, but it's also a socialization thing as well, right?
Yeah, and an active thing. People can get active, moving earth.
Great. And so what is your role here within the community garden?
Yeah, my role is to kind of coordinate how things go. So I can help people figure out where and what to plant and organize workshops with expert gardeners in the valley. So part of what I would like to do is organize some workshops about composting and preparing different garden vegetables that we'll grow. Organizing.
Okay, that's great. You mentioned workshops. What kind of workshops would you be offering? Or hope to be offering?
Yeah, I'm going to be putting on a survey in the next week or so where people can let me know what they want to see. So that could be anything from seed saving to growing flowers or cooking different types of food. Hopefully people will fill in the survey and let me know what they want to see.
Great. So the community garden was established last year in 2020. I know you weren't here for that, but can you tell us what you heard about how things went last year?
Yeah, I think it went really well. It was a late start. I don't know when they started, but getting things up and rolling and building all the beds, moving all the soil, getting all of the materials to kind of spruce up the garden. And then from there, I know they grew a lot of vegetables that they were giving away to folks who were experiencing food insecurity, and getting lots of peas and beans and lots of greens. I came by last August and the beds were just totally full of vegetables. So
oh, nice.
It's a big success.
So tell us about this year. What are your expectations for this year?
Yeah, this year I think I'm very excited because we have about 15 people already interested in beds and have already committed and are ready to start growing. And so I'm excited to see what they produce and what they're able to teach me.
Nice. So this year, April 22nd, is Earth Day around the globe. This year's theme, I understand, is Restore Our Earth. So this is a real nice tie into that. To coincide with that, RVCS is hosting Get Your Hands in the Earth Day. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so as a way to kind of get the garden moving for the summer, I decided to host a little event where we can get people out. Whether you have a bed here or you don't, you can come on down and help us move some earth, help us organize some things, and also learn a little bit about composting and learn a little bit about different seeds. We're going to have a couple little games that you can try, and some build your own pot build your own biodegradable plant pot that you can plant a seed in and take home with you. So there'll be a few different events that people can come and meet people, speak with me, speak with other gardeners, and figure out what the community garden's all about.
Great. Well, I see there are a few things here that I've taken some shots of earlier. For example, there's something there beside the shack that looks like a teepee. What's that going to be for?
Yeah, the teepee was put together to grow scarlet runner beans, and they can create they grow really fast and create a greened-in teepee that is great for kids to play in and have food to eat while they're playing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Watch out, you better not plant peas or you won't have many left.
Yeah.
And tell us about the wooden structure in the middle here.
Yeah, so the pergola is kind of a nice shady path. So kind of as people come into the garden, they're drawn through the pergola, and if people want to plant peas or beans on it, that would be great. The beds right beside it are taken by people in the community, so whatever they want to do with that space is up to them.
Oh, that's great. And you also have a kids feature. Tell us about the kids feature there.
Yeah, so the kids feature was built so that people who have families can bring their kids while they're gardening. They can help with the gardening, and then they can also play by themselves so that parents can work on the garden. And
right.
Yeah.
And it's all fenced in and nice and safe, so you don't have to worry about kids wandering off or
Yeah,
anything,
exactly.
Right? I guess the last question is, how can people volunteer and become involved, whether they have a bed or not, here? Because there are some people that would just like to come and garden. How can they be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to do that is to volunteer. So you can just contact me at foodsecurity@rvcsbc.org. And I'll let you know when is a good time to come down. Every Thursday between 4 and 6, I'm going to be at the garden, and if people want to drop in and help move something or weed, that would be awesome. So that's kind of an informal way to volunteer. And then workshops throughout the summer we'll be posting on social media and posters around town. So when we're having workshops, you can come down and join us for those.
Great. And that will be through the RVCS Facebook page and through their website?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for taking us in and letting us see what you're doing this year. Happy gardening.
Thanks.
We're here at the Valemount Community Garden with Leanne Abbott and Christine Torgerson from the Great Room at Valemount New Life Centre. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you,
Michael.
Great. So I want to ask, before we get started talking about the plot and things, for those that don't know, can you tell people what the Great Room is?
The Great Room is a community outreach program that opened in May of 2019, and we're open twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, and we have little mini shops that have clothing and household supplies and needs, and we also serve meals twice a week for those that are in need, free or by donation. And on Fridays we have a share shelf so people can pick up some food staples and supplies that they might need that are not as easy to access if you're in a moderate situation.
Okay, well that kind of leads us into what we want to talk about here today at the community garden. So you're sitting on plot number 12.
Yes.
Why did the Great Room decide to take a plot here at the community garden last year, and you've re-upped for this year? Why did you decide to do it?
Last year we were really blessed to be invited by the community garden to be one of the first people to start at the garden plot. So last year they generously donated us this plot here, so it was great to be able to be part of getting started here, and wanted to continue on this year. But the experience was really good. The growing of the vegetables and getting the helpers from the Great Room involved in the work here to be done, as well as to be able to take that produce and product back into the kitchen to be able to make soups and meals, as well as to put it on that share shelf and get it out into the community where it's needed.
Great. Well, Christine, what kind of things did you grow last year?
Well, we had potatoes and carrots.
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes, yes. Yeah, the tomatoes. That was amazing. That I've never been able to grow tomatoes, so I thought that was a good thing, but yeah.
Nice. And so people are taking advantage of it? They're taking some of the produce home from your share shelf?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great.
And a lot of the fresh spices too were really nice to have, and think this year we're going to try and do some strawberries and
Okay.
get a little more adventurous.
So the same things with strawberries. Anything else new?
Not that we know of yet, probably definitely bigger, but excited to see what it is in the seed packs that the RVCS have. We're going to go with that route this year, as well as some starter seeds, starter plants that would come in. And last year again, we had some donations to even get us started in that department. So
Great.
giving and continue to keep giving.
Nice. Well, you're, I think, one of the only nonprofit organizations that took advantage of this last year. Maybe there'll be more this year. What would you say to other nonprofits about this experience?
I think it's a great way to get involved together with each organization and work together, as well as getting more awareness out into the community of the different organizations that are there to support you.
Great. Well, happy growing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. We're here with Lena Thompson, who's the Executive Director of RVCS. Lena, thanks for being here today. Before we get started, I wanted to just read a little bit off your website. It says, RVCS is a charitable organization dedicated to strengthening all individuals, families, and communities by providing programs and services and by collaborating within a rural environment. Well, I can't think of anything that meets your mandate more than this.
I agree.
You know, you've got individuals, you've got groups, and we're kind of in a somewhat rural environment here. So it's certainly in keeping with your mandate. First question, I understand that many individuals, businesses, and organizations helped make this garden a reality. But that it started with some seed funding, pun intended, from the Columbia Basin Trust. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So just at the peak, I guess, the initial peak of our pandemic, Columbia Basin Trust reached out to me personally and asked what community needed as far as a community service perspective. And one of the things that we identified was, at that time, a lack of produce through no fault of anyone's. We have a great grocer here, but just the supply chain was very limited. And staff had actually taken a photo that there was no produce in the stores. So I was very concerned about people getting access to food. And they were very gracious in providing us some funding to help. And I think actually between March and April, my husband and I delivered, I think, over 7,000 in food hampers to community. But fresh produce was something that was really lacking. And we know the importance of being able to provide all demographics. So Columbia Basin Trust, we had a little left over. And I said, would you be okay if we spent, I think it was under $5,000 to renovate the community gardens? And our intention is to give back to community. There's no profit in any way. 100% of the donations go back to the garden space. And they said, yes, do that. So we took a leap of faith and we started with $5,000 and we just started the community gardens to the best of our ability, and it created a chain event, which was wonderful.
Yeah, it is wonderful. I guess one of the main thank yous has to go to Sean Thompson, who volunteered his time to plan and build these, it said 11 raised garden beds, but I think we actually have a few more now. They're multiplying, so that's great. A tremendous amount of work was put in there. You also received a lot of community support, and I just wanted to kind of read through the list. Sure. Because when I saw it via your email, it was quite impressive. A generous donation by CN Rail and by Trans Mountain. Donations of spent mushroom blocks from Paul McManus, and we know his business is going well, and that's great of him to do that. Donations of wood mulch from Cedar Valley Holdings, loads of old hay, manure, crushed rock, and the muscle to move them from Willow Ranch, Thunder Valley Valley Towing, and Spiral Trucking. A great thing. I mean, you can see the piles around here ready to go and to do new things. Sharon and Graham Dara donated trucking services to deliver soil. CMH, Canadian Mountain Holidays, provided equipment and labor to assist in moving the soil. Donation of gardening trolls by Corey Marshall, additional items from the community, Children's Sandbox by Jared Peets and Owen Dean, and Keith McMaster and Owen Dean put in a lot of labor for this as well. So it's really a huge amount of involvement from the community. Do you think that overall this is a project that's helping bring people together?
I do, and I think it came about at the right time. I think a lot of folks, I know I did, felt really helpless when the pandemic hit. We didn't know what we could do. We needed something like a feel good, and this just felt something tangible. And literally, people could physically do something and come together, even if it meant that we couldn't physically be together. So I think it was also the right time and much needed in community. It lifted folks' spirits.
Nice.
And provided something back, yeah.
Yeah, we can all use that right now.
Definitely.
I wanted to talk about last year. The Thompson family took a plot here, standing right beside it, and you're going to do it the same again this year, I hope. Can I ask you why you decided to rent out a plot as a family, more so than from an RVCS perspective? Why did you decide to do it, and what was your experience like with it last year?
So aside from work, in my personal life, we rent a home here. We don't own yet in Velma, and we did not want to put a garden and then find out we have to move and leave our garden behind. So we thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity. I also really selfishly loved that my staff could teach me how to garden because I did not know what to do. So it was a good way, honestly, to come in and learn, just learn from folks who know best. So that's what we intended to do. And what it turned into actually is like therapeutic. So what my 6-year-old, 5 at the time, she'd come down, she'd be like, can we go to the garden? And she would sit and she just would dig, and it turned into hours. And then we started learning about growing and attachment and your own food, and we're having these big conversations. So our intention was to learn how to garden, be self-sufficient with food, but then it turned into a lot more. And in fact, one of our garden beds is our early years bed, and we did that same concept for any of our young families and community. So I would say about 90% of the produce that we grew, we ended up giving back to community for free, and we would deliver that. But yeah, it was just a way to learn and be a part of the community. So,
right. Would you encourage other families to get involved?
Absolutely. One of the things I've heard here is, well, we have big backyards and ability to do gardening in our own homes, and that's true, but I bet people have skills that other folks would love to learn from, like me. So I think I know a certain part of professional life, but I don't know all these, I'd say, organic things that folks here who grow up, using the land can share their knowledge or give back to community. I would welcome it, even if it's just to volunteer and get your hands in there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we talked with Rebecca earlier, and she mentioned, socialization is a big part of this.
Yes.
And I mean, never mind COVID aside, just socialization is a great thing because, like you say, people have backyards, but they're in their own backyard, right? So here you get out there and you get a chance to be it. And it is the perfect COVID socialization thing. It's outside. You're definitely 6 feet apart from everybody there. And I understand you have COVID protocols in place anyway.
We do, yeah.
So it keeps it nice and safe. Is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't really talked about here that you'd like people to know about the garden?
Well, I guess one of my big things, my staff may be cringe, but I have long-term plans I'd love to see, and really what I would love to see beyond the gardens too is, I'd love to see a walkway around where folks who maybe have mobility challenges, maybe in a wheelchair, where we could take them to the space and have somewhere just to be, to sit and enjoy just a safe space. And one of the things that has come out of this is we've always had fantastic female allies in community, but the amount of our male allies who maybe haven't sought traditional services through RBCS, they came out and really supported community with the labor and things like that. We'd love to start a men's shed. So if folks in community, if you're like, oh, I'd be interested in that, we'd like it to be male-led, and we would support it. So that is something that has come out of it. We feel is the next need that we'd like to do some things. So.
Great, and Rebecca says it's mostly full. There might be one more bed for this year, but there's always opportunities for people to come and volunteer and help out and be involved. Have you got any immediate plans for next year? I mean, we're already into this growing season now. Knock wood, beautiful sunny day. Any immediate plans for anything for next year that you can let us in on? Or
Sure. So, well, for this year, I know we're going to be redoing the fence. I believe Sean came and built 3 more boxes. We'd really love to turn the space behind us into maybe a gazebo, a sitting area. I know that I've spoke to some people at the school, always looking for covered places where children can come and do outdoor activities. So that would be our second step. Of course, funding is always a challenge, but I'm confident we'll get there. And what we're hoping is just a gathering place for folks to be able to come and sit and enjoy, put your hands in the dirt if you choose, and volunteer. So that's the next step. And if folks see that as something that inspires them, I would absolutely welcome the assistance. Like as I said, gardening is something I'm new at, but could definitely help with the bigger picture.
Great.
component.
So people can get involved with either having a bed on their own, or
Yep.
they can volunteer, or they can maybe bring you ideas that something you haven't
Yes.
thought of that might fit in with the space. Eh?
Yes. And may I say that Pete Amuni from Dunster, we did not recognize him, and I apologize, it just came to mind, but he was one of the first folks who shared his wisdom, came out, drove all the way out from Dunster, walked the gardens, told me about the soil, and said, you do not have a community garden without community. So we have not forgotten that piece. So we really need community if we want to see this be a part of long-term planning.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you very much. Happy gardening
Thank you.
for this year, and we'll see you on Get Your Hands in the Earth
Yes.
Day, April 22nd.
I will be here.
And come on out and see what you can do here and learn a little bit more about the garden. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks.